Hi, guys. Welcome to the Curated Pages Podcast.
Your place for curated reads, honest reviews, and thoughtful book talk. I'm Haylee.
And I'm Adria. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow along to stay updated each week, and it really helps support the channel. Now, let's get into today's episode. So let's dive right into it. Haylee, what are you currently reading?
I am still reading Hemlock and Silver by Kingfisher. I'm not going to do another synopsis because we talked about this book too many times. I feel like we all know at this point it's a retelling of Snow White. It's a darker retelling of Snow White from the point of view of a poison healer, Anya. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Yeah.
But I have finally made it to chapter 8. And we are finally where they get to snow, and it's got a tiny hook in me. But this one hasn't fully pulled me in, and I'm trying very hard. I keep finding myself setting this down, getting distracted, not feeling super motivated to pick it back up. That being said, I am trying to push through it. I'm trying not to DNF this book. For me, I'm trying really not to, but honestly, I think part of the problem with reading this one is timing. Once I start a series, I'm very I just want to read the whole series. So I'm in the Dungeon Crawler Carl world right now, and I just have that third book on my brain. So I think wrong book at the wrong time situation. So how I think I'm going to go moving forward is I think I'm going to read a little bit of each one at the same time and see if that helps me connect more with this one, and maybe it'll get me far enough into this one where I'll just finish this one out. That way I'm still getting my Dungeon Crawler Carl fix too a little bit. So we'll see. One part has intrigued me. Like one little thing that just happened. I was like, ooh, mystery. Okay. Anyway, so what are you reading this week?
I am reading A Song to Drown Rivers by Liang. This is a historical fantasy, though as I'm reading it, I don't see the fantasy elements, but apparently it's a fantasy. Yeah.
Good to
I
know.
think it's more of a historical fiction, but people call it a fantasy. So
Okay.
it's inspired by the legend of Xisha, which is one of ancient China's four beauties, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Xisha is chosen to infiltrate an enemy kingdom and use her beauty as a weapon to overthrow its cruel ruler and avenge her sister's death. So she's just so beautiful. Like she's been blessed. Like people are like, she has to wear face coverings when she goes out in public because otherwise people stop and stare because she's just so beautiful. Like it's so over the top and she knows it. She knows she's gorgeous. Um,
Okay.
it's just so over the top, but they decide to use her beauty as a weapon. So as she trains to become like this spy for her kingdom against this other kingdom, she enters the dangerous royal court. There's lots of politics, and she finds herself torn between duty, deception, and her growing feelings for the man who recruited her, which is the military advisor to the king of her kingdom. And it's got lots of political intrigue, and there's quite a bit of sacrifices that she has to make to go through and do this. There's some romance in it, which I liked. There wasn't explicit at all, and it was like sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And the novel explores the cost of war and the power of love and loyalty. It's really good. I think this one is really good so far. It reminds me a lot
Mm-mm.
of The Poet Empress by Shin Tao,
Okay.
and I love that book. It was 5 stars. I could not put it down. It was so good. Our characters are super similar to The Poet Empress, and the premise is the same, where she's going and infiltrating this court to try and like defeat an evil ruler, essentially.
Okay.
Um, like trying to woo him and like change what he does from behind the scenes, essentially. So apparently, I really like this trope. But our characters
Nothing
are
wrong with that.
yeah. The characters in this are just super compelling, and I feel like they were really well thought out, and all their motivations made sense, and I'm enjoying the plot a lot. Like I said, it's really similar, and I really love it. I do wish in the beginning that more time was spent on her actually training to become this spy, because it feels like she got selected and then she went to start training. They did a couple things, and then all of a sudden they like time jump to the end of her training. And it's just like, no,
Okay,
I want to see, I want to see that progress. Um,
I get that.
I also think like that time period is when she falls in love with the love interest. So I think it just would have helped me also fall in love with that character because
Mhm.
it just kind of felt like you're just being told that she loves him, you know?
Coulda helped, like, build that connection between the characters. I get that.
Yeah. But overall, I think it's super good and I'm so excited to finish it. So for our review section this week, we want to talk about books that we have DNF'd and why. So, Haley, what is a book that you've DNF'd and why did you DNF it?
So, the book I brought today is The Gunslinger by Stephen King. A little bit about this book. It's been, oh, how many years since I tried to read this book? Probably 5. So, I'm just gonna read the synopsis because I don't remember what it's about. So, The Gunslinger is the first book in Stephen King's epic Dark Tower series. It's blending dark fantasy, westerns, and sci-fi together. The story follows Roland, the last of an ancient order of duelists. Roland is relentlessly pursuing a powerful, elusive sorcerer known as the Man in Black across a vast, deadly desert. Roland's ultimate goal isn't just to catch this man, but to reach the Dark Tower, a mythical structure said to hold the universe together. Along his brutal journey, Roland meets Jake, a young boy from 1970s New York who has inexplicably ended up in this strange world. As they face the desert's horrors together, Roland is forced to weigh his growing bond with this boy against his absolute driving obsession to reach the tower at any cost. Its atmosphere is surreal, and it sets up a massive universe-spanning epic.
That is very weird to think about. So you're in like this magical world, and then this boy from almost modern day gets like transported there.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I think I made it, like, halfway, and it's not a big book. This is not a big book at all. I think I made it about halfway, and I just did not even understand what was going on. I see now on the cover of this, it says it's a major motion picture. So maybe I need to see the watch the movie because I wanted to love this series so much. A few years ago, probably like 5 years ago, I went on a huge Stephen King spree. I kept reading books with connection to the Dark Tower series, and I did so much research on what books to read before starting this series, and I was so excited to read it. And I think I made it like halfway through, and I just had no idea what was going on. I felt like Stephen King just drops you directly in the middle of this story without grounding you in the world or explaining much of anything. So I really struggled to connect with anything because I just clearly had not a clue what was going on. Like, I felt like I missed an entire book, and this is the first book. So,
That's really weird because it's like kind of the opposite of Hemlock and Silver, where it's not dropping you in enough, but this one dropped you in too far. So
yeah,
that's a weird balance.
yes, I need, like, I need to understand, like, what's going on. Like, feel like most books, they do kind of plop you in kind of in the middle of, like, what's happening, but they at least explain what is going on, and from what I remember, there was 0 explanation on what was going on here. And I even heard some people say that the first book is super hard to get through and it's not crucial to read it first. So I even attempted, yeah, I did so much research on this. So some people said they actually start with the second book and then finish with the first, and it makes more sense. So I even tried to start the second book and still just had no clue what was going on. So at this point, I have DNF'd it for now. I still love Stephen King, and maybe one day I'll come back to the series. Like I said, maybe I'll watch the movie and maybe that'll help make some connections to the book better, because it was even hard for me, like, to visualize some things, like, going on. And, like, when I read a book, it's a movie going on in my head. So, if I'm having a hard time picturing things, it's also harder for me to read. But I do think at some point in time, I will give this series a try again, but that is why I DNF'd the Gunslinger.
I mean, I get that. If you're just constantly confused, how are you supposed to read it?
Yeah.
So, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
It was hard. And reading that description where he's like, Roland is straight from a Western, and then you have this Jake who's from 1970s New York. I don't remember how that was even a correlation. So, and I don't remember if it was explained how that happened. Maybe I didn't get far enough for it to explain how that happened. I don't remember. It's been too long. But yeah. And like I said, out of the series, this is the shortest book, so I didn't think, I was like, even if I hate this and I don't understand what's going on, I can at least push through this small of a book. And I couldn't do it. So, what about you? What book have you DNF'd?
So, I was kinda in the similar situation where this book I really, really, really wanted to love it, and I just couldn't. It's The Evil Queen by Gena Showalter, and it's a dark YA fantasy retelling of Snow White set in this magical world of, I think it's Enchantia.
Looks
It's
right.
where, yeah, where fairy tales are actually just prophecies. So, like, fairy tales that we have, like Snow White and the Little Mermaid and Sleeping Beauty, or I guess they're all been turned into Disney movies, but, like, the actual old fairy tales are just prophecies in this real world, like, things that are actually going to happen. So, the main character is Everly Morrow. She discovers that she is a hidden princess, and she has the powers to communicate through mirrors. But with that revelation comes a terrifying fate. She is destined to become the evil queen. And from what I read, it is implied that Snow White is her twin sister. So it's like this weird relationship.
We both read Hemlock and Silver, which is like a retelling of Snow White, and you loved that one. And now here's another one. It's just like a retelling of Snow White, and you DNF'd
Yes.
it.
I loved Hemlock and Silver. And this one I'm just like, I cannot read this for the life of me. I've had this book on my shelf since 2020. Like, it's been a long time, and I've tried reading it. I think that was my 3rd time, and I eventually just was like, "Screw it, I'm done," and I got rid of the book. Um, so this last little bit, Everly is pulled into this world of magic, betrayal, and romance, and she must decide whether to fight her dark destiny or embrace the villain she may have been born to be. And this, in the book, it is so it's almost like a caricature of how, like, evil she is. Like, she's in high school, and she has no friends. Everybody is just, like, super intimidated by her, even though she's this tiny little blonde girl, like, short, weighs absolutely nothing. Like, she is not intimidating, but everybody's intimidated by her. And her twin sister is the absolute opposite, like, dark hair. Animals literally flock to her. Like, it's so over the top, and I just thought it was ridiculous. and I could not get in this story.
When you were talking about this with Evil Queen, I was looking at the stakes. I read like a young adult, I think it was like a villain series where it's all from like the perspective of the villain. And I read Fairest of All, which was the Evil Queen's perspective of Snow White. So I was trying to see if wait, was this the same book? It is not the same book.
No.
But I didn't give that very many stars either. But
We don't like our Snow White retellings around here, apparently.
well, you like Hemlock and Silver though. So
We've got one.
like one.
Oh.
So what didn't you like about, well, I guess we kind of talked about it, but like what else didn't you really like about it?
When I decided to try reading it, I found that it was just too overly YA for me. The protagonists were just annoying teenagers that were just so unrealistic. Like, yes, it's a fairy tale and there's magic, but the way that they acted was horrifically unrealistic. And the way they were treated by everyone around them was just ridiculous. Like the Snow White girl, I think her name is like Hartley or something. Literally everyone flocks to her. She's so popular and amazing, but she's just a sweet little girl, and animals literally flock to her. Like there's
Hmm.
a scene where they're in school. They're in school and this goat literally runs up to her and is like, "What? We're in school. What is happening?" But then Everly, who's going to be the evil queen, she's just like, everybody stays away from her. Everybody hates her. She can't have good relationships. Teachers hate her. Like, she's so discriminated against for no reason. It's just ridiculous. Um, every time something like that would happen, it just pulled me out of the story completely. And it made it really, really hard to read. I think the concept was really cool. The way that the mirror magic worked, because like you could touch it and there was like this ripple effect in the mirror. And then she'd see this person in the mirror that was another girl from the magical world. Um, it was really interesting, but the characters were just so immature. I if I could have gotten past the YA feeling, I think I could have really loved the story. I just unfortunately needed something more mature because it just was not good.
It almost sounds like the characters weren't developed enough because you were saying it didn't make sense why everyone was just so mean to, you say Everly, and everyone just hated her, but like there was no real reason why. So it was almost like the author needed to give you a reason for everyone to be so against her, and she didn't give that.
Yeah, it was like, I'm assuming based off of what I read so far, that it was because of magic, which
Okay.
like this prophecy that she's evil and everyone hates her. So right now, everyone hates her for no reason because she doesn't realize that she's evil. But I feel like I don't know, it just felt too like superficial, if that
This is
makes
probably
sense.
too this is probably too deep for this book, but then that also kind of poses the question that, so she has this prophecy that she's supposed to be evil, so everyone hates her because she's evil, but she doesn't think she's evil. Did everyone hating on her make her become evil? If people would have still been normal to her, would she have ended up being this evil queen? Would that prophecy have come true? Like,
Yeah. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy that she didn't even realize.
yeah. So to me, that kind of almost makes me feel that maybe she just was like, yeah, they all think I'm evil. I guess I'm going to be evil. Prophecy or no, I'm just going to be evil. And I don't know. Yeah, I think that would drive me nuts too. That, oh, hate this character, but don't give a reason to like hate her besides
Yeah.
this prophecy that she's supposed to be evil. Like, I need a reason to not like like, give me something.
She was also kind of cringy, I'm not gonna lie. Like she was, again, this small, not intimidating girl in high school, but she beat up this dude and like has threatened people that were, I don't know. being weird to her sister. It's like, you are just the short, skinny, like, could be snapped in half person. What do you mean you were beating up these big, like, football player type dudes?
Kind
This doesn't it's not realistic at all. And that's yes, it's magic, but it makes no sense. It
I
makes
am
no
going
sense.
to diss on our favorite book to this right now because what you're just saying reminds me of Fourth Wing with Violet and her being like so little, but like just ended up
Yes.
being like this badass apparently. And it's just how because she's supposedly this small, frail, breaks bones super easily, but like you're telling me she gets the biggest dragon. She ends up beating up all these like people in her class, like
I'm I mean, to be fair, I think Rebecca Yarros did a bit better of a job making that slightly more believable, because the reason she's frail is because some, like, a described medical condition that Rebecca Yarros herself has. I don't know, I don't think it was explained properly in the book, but she's frail for a reason, not just because she wants a skinny, like, main character. I mean, she probably just does, but, um, there's a reason for her being weak. But then I guess when there's fighting, like, she kept poisoning her competitors, so she kept beating them. So, like, I guess it kinda makes sense, but yeah, also, how are you not dead?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Because eventually she stops poisoning her opponents and eventually does get better. She trains and whatnot. But I was just through some of those scenes, I'm like, really? Like, all right, should we get into our discussion? All right. So, first question: what is more important to you when deciding to DNF? Is it bad writing? Is it boredom? Lack of connection? What is it for you?
I think for me, it's a mix of bad writing and boredom. If I'm not connecting as much, I can still enjoy the story. I mean, it won't be as good as if I did connect, but I can still get through it. If it's just poorly written and I'm just bored, I'm not gonna read it, and I feel like I'm wasting my own time where I could be reading something else that I'd really like. So, if I just get, yeah, bored and just completely pulled out of the story because of how bad it's written, I'm just like, "You know what? I'm done. We're getting rid of this book. I'm done." So,
I get that. I feel like I'm the same way. If I am bored in a book, which, like I said, I was bored with Hemlock and Silver. If I'm bored, I'm not as likely to like want to pick it up. I, like I said, with Hemlock and Silver, my mind has been on the Dungeon Anarchist cookbook. I've been just wanting to read that. So that's where I'm kind of maybe if I give my brain a little bit of that like hit of the book that I want, maybe it'll be easier to get through this book because I have it on my goal to read our Mindful Mom book club pick. So I'm really trying to get through this book. And I don't have many days left of the month to try and finish this book, but I'm trying. And I also feel like if the writing's bad, I can maybe sometimes push through that and finish it. But if it's boredom or I'm just not connecting with the book, I'm more likely to DNF it.
yeah. So for our next question, what's the difference between a bad book and a wrong time book?
So for me, I feel like a wrong time book is the book itself isn't bad. Like I've talked before about A Man Called Ove. That book is not bad. I just read it at a wrong time in my life. And even The Gunslinger, I don't think it's a bad book. I just might have read it at the wrong time. I was reading a lot of Stephen King, but I think this is more heavily like fantasy sci-fi. And I hadn't really read anything sci-fi at that point. So it might have just been like wrong timing. And now I am reading a little bit more sci-fi. I'm reading a little bit more fantasy. So I might be able to connect with it a little bit better, just maturing and the different things that I've read. I might be able to pick it up and understand it now, or at least make it through where it somewhat makes sense, and then get to the second book, and then the second book maybe pulls it all together and it makes sense. But I think a bad book is just a bad book, and I'm gonna DNF it. But there's always a wrong time book. That the writing's great, the character development's great, but you're just not in the right place in your life or in the right headspace to really take that book for like what it's worth, if that makes sense.
I feel like I'm pretty similar where a book can just if it's a bad book, like, it's pretty easy to tell and it's pretty easy to DNF. But a wrong time book, it's usually a bit more well written. Maybe I was just bored with it, or I was in a reading slump and that affected how I viewed the book. So I feel like it's hard to describe the difference, but there's definitely a difference. It's just hard to put it into words.
I agree. So for our next question, how long do you usually give a book before you're just like, I'm done? I'm giving up.
Um, I feel like it really depends. A lot of the times it's about 30% roughly, but that's not an exact at 30%, if I hate it, I'm done. Like, I won't force myself to go that far, but usually I just try and push and push and push until I cannot read anymore without losing my mind, you know? What about you?
I it takes a lot for me to DNF a book, I feel like. I usually will push through. I feel like if I didn't have another book that I was like really wanting to read, I would be pushing through Hemlock and Silver, but it would probably take me a lot longer. And I feel like those type of books are what the books that maybe put me in like a reading slump because I forced myself to probably read a book that I shouldn't have. I should have just gave up on it, but it's really hard for me to give up on a book like once I start it. So, um that's why the Gunslinger was just like so disappointing that I just finally gave up on it. And it wasn't from it being a bad book. It was just I had no idea what was going on in it.
It's interesting that a book that you want to DNF can put you in a reading slump, because for me, it usually does the opposite. Like, a bad
Really.
book will make me wanna go pick up a different book and go read more, but a really, really good book usually puts me in a slump because it just is so good that I'm like, "What do I even pick? There's nothing else that's gonna be as good."
I feel like I'm kind of both ways. When I have like a really good book, it can put me in a slump because I feel like nothing is going to like live up to that book or I'm not going to be able to read something that's at that same level. And it was like, oh my gosh, this book was so good. And now I need to find something that's equally as good. But also on the flip side, if I'm reading a book that I just didn't really enjoy and it took me a month to read it, it kind of is like, well, now where do I go from here? This book sucked, or this wasn't a great book. Now I don't really know what book to pick from here. So that's where it kind of put me in a slump because I felt like with the man called Ove, that put me in a slump from when I finished it in like July until I think it was after I had Sophie. 'Cause I was pregnant with her when I read it. And then I didn't start reading again until after I had her. But I also had a newborn and that pregnancy wasn't the easiest. So I don't know. Slumps are different for me, but it takes a lot for me to DNF a book, I feel like.
Yeah, so piggyback bleh, piggybacking off of what you just said, it takes a lot for you to DNF a book. Do you feel guilty when you DNF a book?
I do think I feel guilty not like giving the book its full try. So even if, because I also have a book that everyone says they loved, it's Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. I started to read that I don't know how many years ago, a couple years ago, and it just didn't pull me in, and I stopped reading it, but it's also a book that I'm not considering a true DNF because I do plan to read that again. So, like, I did stop that one and start a different book because I don't know, it might have just been wrong timing, whatever it was, but that is a book that I absolutely do want to read. I just stopped at that point because I just wasn't feeling it. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like a true DNF is very hard for me because I don't know. I don't say I get invested, but it's just I want to know what happens. I'm nosy. I want to know what happens at the end of the books, or like why people rated this book so high. What was so great about it? I want to know. So, do you feel guilty when you DNF a book?
Um, Not usually, because a lot of times I view it as, is this worth the time I'm going to spend reading it? And if I'm getting through it and I'm like, this feels like such a waste of time, I'm like, you know what? Oh well. Unless it was a book that was given to me. Because then I'm like, somebody, usually a family member, saw this book and thought I would like it, and now I'm not gonna read it. Wow. Like, they spent their hard-earned money on this for me, and it just that's like a total guilt trip, and it's really, really hard to DNF a book that I was given. I think the only time I've DNF'd a book I was, given as a gift was The Evil Queen, but it was just, like, so ridiculously over the top that I just could not do it.
I get that. I also think too, for me, I wanted to read this book for a reason. So I'm trying to like give it a chance and finish it because there was a reason I wanted to read this book. So like I don't want to give up on it. I don't know. I think that's how I am in like real life too. I have a hard time giving up on things. So I have a hard time giving up on books. So final question. What is your biggest DNF trigger? Is it slow pacing, unlikable characters, confusing writing? What is it?
Usually, it's one of 2 things that really gets me. It's either too YA and it's, like, really cringy, or they're just, like, overtly trying to make a political statement when there's no reason for there to be anything there. Like, just absolutely making fun of one of the political sides for no reason, and it's like, this is a fantasy book about fae, like, why are we talking about your opinions on, like, gun control or something? Like, what
Okay.
does this have to do with anything? Um, that usually just pulls me out of the story so much, and I'm just like, "You know what? I'm done. I don't wanna read this anymore." And it's
That's
just
fair.
on both sides too. Like, it doesn't I don't know. It just drives me crazy.
I get that. I think for me, it's like if I'm confused and I have no clue what's going on, I'm gonna DNF it. And I don't know. I also feel maybe like unlikable characters. And I've gotten through slower paced books, but they're not my favorite. So I wouldn't say that's my biggest trigger. I'd have to say confusing writing or just confused, like I don't know what's going on is my trigger. Because why am I gonna read this if I'm just gonna be confused the whole time?
Yeah, because then you finish the book and you're like, "What did I even just read?"
Mhm.
You
And like you
can't
said, it was
even
what was the point of this?
I think with some things like unlikable characters, if it's done right, I can read a story with a very unlikable protagonist. Like, there's some books that are really, really good, and the main character is just an awful person. It's like, Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. Like, that one is such a good book. I haven't read it, but from what I've heard, it's really, really amazing. But the main character is just, like, horrific. Like, she's just so horrible.
That's kinda what you felt like with, The Girl I Was. You hated
Yeah,
the main character.
yeah. Alexis was a mess. She was just she did not have her life together at all, and she was, like, in her 30s. It just
No.
baffled me how she could be so ridiculous, but it's still made for a good story, so, like, you know, it just
Yeah,
depends.
yeah. Feel like the writing has to be good in order for there to be an unlikable character. Alright, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for listening to episode 7 of the Curated Pages podcast.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. It really helps support the channel. Until next time,
Stay lost in the pages. Bye.
bye.